Muckle Part 6. The Mercantilist Roots of Capitalism. Here we go. So 1492 is the most important date in the history of the world. What did the world look like in 1492? In 1492, the most advanced city in the world was Samarkand, the capital of the Mongol Emperor Tamerlane in what is today Uzbekistan. So if we click over here, we're coming to that. Samarkand is in Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan is here, there's Iran, there's Afghanistan, there's Uzbekistan. In Central Asia, former Soviet Republic, and now an independent country. The capital is Tashkent, but Samarkand is a very important city here. We look at it, we think, oh, that's a desert wilderness, but actually, if you look closely, you see it's green around it, which means irrigation, the big river running through there, ancient civilizational site between between China and the Middle East, between India and Southeast Asia and Europe. So it's between a lot of places on the Silk Road. Okay, so what did Tamerlane do? Tamerlane built this city, or at least built it up. And one of the things he did was he built, let's go back here to the notes. Samarkand's universities had more world-class poets, philosophers, scientists, mathematicians, astronomers, and artists than any other single site on Earth. Basically, when he built his capital, he built it with with an eye to scholarship. And so when we go down here today and we stand here in the Registan, we can see number one, a big, giant, beautiful mosque / university, 2 and 3. So these are 3 giant mosques, and they're all universities. What he did was he went out all over the world. I have colleagues who are scholars of the history of science, and they say, okay, who was the greatest, who were the top 20 greatest people working in optics in 1492? Who are the top 20 people in the world working in astronomy? Who are the top 20 people in the world working in physics, or in chemistry, or in mathematics, or in philosophy, or poetry, or art, or whatever? You find the top 20 people, and a lot of those top 20 are sitting in Samarkand in 1492. So that's why they say it's the top, is the center of the world in 1492. Remember what this world looks like? In contrast, in 1492, the Catholic, what about Europe? Yeah, the Catholic rulers of Spain were finally able to establish control over their territory and drive the last Muslim leaders from Granada. So today, the Philippines and Colombia both have rebel movements. There are sections of Filipino and Colombian territory that say, we reject you as, we are not part of your country. We are independent. If the government defeats the rebels and establishes territorial control over all of the territory they claim, that's it, right? That's what Spain did. It's nothing to be particularly proud of, objectively speaking. It's a good thing, but it's not significant. The only globally important European powers at this time were Venice and Genoa, Italian trading cities that were very wealthy, but were in a very poor part of the world. Let's look at tax revenues of the ancient world. It's in your files on Canvas. If you can look here, tax revenue in 350 BCE, you got 17 million people in Persia, and this is the total revenue. We get this from doing, from counting up stuff. And then you figure out the, from tax records or whatever, the revenue per capita in Persia is 41. And so that's how rich the place is. How many grams of silver did you draw in taxes from your population? Egypt was 55. That's the highest number there. That's 200 BC. BCE means before the Common Era. It sort of replaces before Christ. Before Christ means before the Messiah. And if you're Muslim, it's, Christ is sort of an important guy. It's not that offensive. But if you're Jewish, they don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah. So it's kind of offensive to force them to say it. If you say Common Era instead of Anno Domini, AD is Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord. Again, Muslims are like, cool, we like Jesus, but Jews are like, we don't really think that Jesus was our Lord, and we don't want to say it. And Buddhists and Hindus and all the other religions of the world, non-religious people, the numbers are the same. We just don't want to make people feel bad by forcing them to say BC and AD. So I say BCE and CE. It's the same thing, just less of a force. Revenue per capita, we have grams of silver here. 17, Rome, prior to the conquest of Egypt, they conquered Egypt somewhere along in here, and got a lot richer, right? 21 instead of 17. Byzantium, the Eastern Roman Empire, 850 CE is 1548. The Abbasids, this is in Iraq, around the same time as Byzantium, 3 times as rich. The Tang Empire in China, of course, is always solid, a wealthy place. France at the time, 2.4, and England, 4.6. Dude, if you multiply that times 1,000, you can start thinking of US dollars. If you think of $41,000, the GDP per capita in 2012, this is the gross domestic product per capita. The highest number on there, of course, is Norway, 55,000. Russia's at 17. Poland is a little bit richer than Russia. Mexico at 15,000. This is Byzantium. This was Rome after conquering Egypt. This was Rome before conquering Egypt. This was Rome. This is Persia, Iran today. And then the USA at 48, this is the Abbasid Empire. This is Iraq, hundreds of years ago. Canada is a little bit less than that. This was the Chinese, hundreds of years ago. Cambodia and Honduras, these are India, France, and England at the time, 1200 CE. When everyone says, oh yeah, Europe was such an important place. This is the center of the world. This is Charlemagne and all that. No. Charlemagne was incredibly poor, in a miserably poor backwater, middle of nowhere, right? Cambodia, Honduras, right? These are not the richest parts of the world. That's the numbers right there. You can go, look them up. Look up his sources. I got it all documented here. You can go find it yourself. The point I'm making here is that when we hear about the fabulous wealth of Venice and Genoa, and I remember reading it myself in high school, a world history class, Venice and Genoa, these important, these fabulously wealthy places, they were not. They were not fabulously wealthy. The only reason they looked fabulously wealthy was because they were in a very poor part of the world. They were the equivalent of Hong Kong and Singapore today. Hong Kong and Singapore are important trading cities down here. Hong Kong is in here. They're rich places. They're as rich as the United States. The United States is about $55,000, $60,000 per year per capita GDP today, and Hong Kong is about that, and Singapore is about that. But so is China. So is France. So is England. So is Canada. So is Australia. These are all rich places as well. Netherlands, Spain. These are all other rich countries. It's just that Singapore is right next to Indonesia, which is not a very poor country, but it's a lot poorer than Singapore, as is Malaysia, as is Cambodia and Vietnam, as is the Philippines. So basically, they're just ordinary wealthy countries within a very, very poor environment of Western Europe. In terms of military power, the Portuguese Navy was making some headway along the coast of Africa, but on land, its army would be soundly defeated by a Moroccan army in 1587. So the first two major events of 1492, the unification of Spain and the Inquisition. The Inquisition? Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, but we will pick it up next time, the Spanish Inquisition. Wow, the expulsion of Jews and Muslims. Let's come back to this.